bit of an abrupt ending for the previous clip, and I'm pretty sure that this one is going to have an abrupt ending when we finish it off. Blame the annoying length of some of the bits of raw footage I'm working with here. Okay, how are we supposed to open that path up? Right. Why am I even surprised that the solution is to grapple beam pull it? That's been our way through a lot of obstacles in this game so far. And it set itself back to the top just as we arrived. Certainly didn't take all that much to solve that poor excuse of a puzzle. But then it's not like we had much of a reward at the end of it either. Seriously? A weapon expansion for our ship when again, the only times we ever shoot anything with ship are when we are absolutely scripted to. It's not like we're allowed to call in a bombing run when we're fighting against a bunch of random pirates or a boss, that's for sure. And again, it's not like we ever see anything on our heads-up display that shows us just how much ammo our ship might have left at the moment. It just feels like such an artifact from an older build of the game that didn't bother to remove when they released the final product. I can't remember the last time I saw a blatant artifact like that in a game, and this is coming from someone who goes out of his way to occasionally play less than successful games, so I don't get spoiled to the point that only the absolutely amazing will feel fun to me. And again, this game just doesn't feel like the best of the Metroid Prime trilogy to me. If I had to rank them, I'd probably say the first Metroid Prime is the best since it was experimenting and got quite a few things right. Then Metroid Prime 3, because while the gameplay and level design kind of make things fun, it doesn't really feel like a full-on Metroid title. It feels like an unrelated game that happened to be inspired by the Metroid Prime series. And Metroid Prime 2 comes in last, due to the combination of unbalanced boss design that resulted in frustrating difficult jumps that were just plain not fun. And of course the obscene number of times we needed to find keys in order to open a door to a special area to move on. Anyway, speaking of keys, we have to use the grapple beam to unlock the central thing that will let us destroy the gun here. The enemies with jetpacks will consider undoing our progress a priority job, willing to die taking hits just to make sure this will last longer for the sake of making it last longer. It's very memorable, and not in a good way. This is the kind of memorable where your brain ends up feeling like it lasted longer than it actually did, because it's annoying, and it's one of the moments I absolutely hate when replaying this game. We'll see if it's quite annoying enough that I end up fast-forwarding through it, rendering my cut job later in the clip pointless, so I'd have to check if I'm going to rearrange the footage again to keep things relatively smooth from one clip to the next. At the very least, seeing a short cutscene of a random enemy undoing the progress we already made for this section is making my memories of this encounter feel like a pain in the ass feel accurate. And I'm apparently going to occasionally lock onto the levers we're supposed to pull on, instead of the guys on chin packs I'm trying to shoot at. Bloody hell. I should probably have been more nimble with my missiles to speed things up here. Sure, they might be able to dodge these, but I'm pretty sure that it's harder to avoid the rockets with its light-seeking ability than the power beams I've been spraying around. And again, we have lost progress because those jetpack bastards are annoying as hell. My mistake. Apparently we knocked him off before he could actually flip it. Another moment that feels more unforgiving in my memories than in actual practice. feels like I prefer the tank hits more in the Metroid Prime games than the 2D ones. Possibly because in all the 3D games, Samus just doesn't feel as agile as she does in the 2D ones. For God's sakes, just let me pull the damn switch and move on. What was even keeping me from latching onto that? Just the fact that we're getting shot at? Because considering how often we have to tear the shields off of specific enemies in the middle of a fight, that feels like bullshit and probably an inaccurate assumption. Definitely taking longer than it strictly needed to, and of course these guys are going to keep on spawning until we destroy the gun. And we're back to full health despite the sheer obscene amount of damage the enemy did with just a few explosions. I'm getting the distinct feeling this game is just overcompensating for the sheer amount of damage we kept taking in Metroid Prime 2, and how annoyingly rare healing items could be until we became outright immune to Dark Aether's air. And I have also confirmed that getting shot at will not interrupt our grapple me, so I still have no idea what was keeping me from grappling earlier on there. Right, stop one level from me flipping and fail to stop another. At the very least, the game is making it very obvious they expected the player to go this way second, after clearing out the other shield generator. Have I mentioned this game feels linear even in comparison to the other two Metroid Primes, which had a lot less freedom to sequence break than the 2D games? I mean, sure, I didn't do much, if any, sequence breaking in any of the Metroid games, 2D or otherwise, but still, it doesn't change the fact that the obstacle course we have to navigate around feels less organic than ever with this game. Anyway, looks like we're done with that song and dance. Time to destroy the fuel gel in the gun before the invisible timer makes us have to flip those levers again. And that does it for the second gun. Time to deal with the second shield generator. Annoying as hell, but still, far more entertaining than having to find 3 explicit keys to open a temple 3 times over, then having to gather even more keys to reach the final area. Have I mentioned that the key hunt in the second Metroid Prime had to be one of my most hated bits of padding things out? I'm actually kind of impressed I didn't give up on the game because of that. Especially considering I gave up on the likes of Digimon World 2 for padding things out in obnoxious ways. I guess I just love the Metroid franchise enough to muscle my way through absolute bullshit, and didn't have the same amount of passion for Digimon. As a side note, apparently we're going to have to move the generator here to somewhere else at some point. Not that we have the ability to lift things with our ship just yet. That's going to be another ship-specific upgrade we're going to need to get, and I'm assuming the Aurora is going to tell us when that's actually going to be relevant. For now, I can't tell if I should chuckle or groan that there's a blatant door underneath this generator that we're probably going to explore at some point later in the game, assuming, of course, that I remember about this generator and find a place to put it when we actually gain the ability to move things that massive around. Doesn't seem like there's a way to turn off that shield around that suspiciously morph ball-sized hole just yet. Probably should have moved on from this room a good deal sooner than I actually did, but hey, can you blame me for trying to explore things for a bit in a Metroid game? Sure, the Metroid series has always been objective-oriented, but again, exploration has been a major part of every frickin' game except for this one, apparently. Why did I even bother trying to shoot a missile at that shield? Was it because I just wanted to see what would happen? Or because I'm getting a little sick of using the grapple beam to pull things for the moment? somehow disappointed that there was only one thing to scan here. Ah! So the strong blast was the convenient bits of fuel gel that came by just as we needed them to, not anything our extremely capable suit can do. Again, not really much of a puzzle to gain the next upgrade. Ah well, at least this upgrade is probably going to be more worthwhile than the odd ship weapon expansion. Seriously, why would we even want a ship weapon expansion in this game, considering the ship is the thing that lets us replenish our energy and ammo? Yeah, the last line of pirates didn't have a chance to prevent us from getting into position to call our ship to bomb the second shield generator. Come to think of it, why do we need to get our ship to do bombing runs instead of sending transmissions to the Federation forces so they can send a bomber or something? I'd probably complain about it less at the very least if that was how we were handling things. It would let the Federation forces we worked with earlier on be a bit more active for a larger chunk of the game, and I'd have fewer issues with the idea of Samus not just piloting to bomb things herself. Right, all that's left is to go to the second seed itself, kill whatever's in there, and we should be done with this planet for the most part.
The destruction of the generators has disabled the Leviathan shield.
Yeah, we confirmed that with our own scans, thank you. You aren't telling us anything fresh. Oh, for God's sakes, considering how much the Aurora wants to keep interrupting the flow of things in this game, you'd think that the Federation would be more active after the whole defense of Norian. But no, they've disappeared until the next major battle in the game, which is a good number of hours away. Ah, one of the rocket-armored pirates. Again, I'd have thought that kind of armor would be a bit more common considering my fighting style in the Metroid Prime games. Sure, it isn't an explicitly dangerous threat, but it does legitimately make me change up how I fight the enemy to a degree, and that's more than a lot of other pirates can say in this game. This might just be me nitpicking, but I can't help feeling that the enemy should have more distinct signs that they're in hyper mode than the small blue flame thing there. I generally can't tell unless I'm just spraying shots at the bastard and a part of me goes, why isn't he dead yet? Oh yeah. Well, part of that probably has to do with the fact that I'm just sleepwalking through a good number of the fights that aren't explicitly major encounters in this game. You're not going to be paying all that much attention to small details like a blue aurora around an enemy if you feel it's another forgettable grunt. Though I suppose that's part of the point behind enemies having hyper mode in the first place. And now part of me is disappointed the enemy dropship decided to leave like a reasonable ship should, instead of staying and fighting for the sake of it. I'm not even sure why, really. Maybe it's just residual bad mood after dealing with the second anti-air gun. Well, at least just flying into the seed is going to feel more worthwhile than the other times we got on the ship to go from one part of the same planet to the other. I'm pretty sure the entrance to the object that dropped from orbit isn't going to be in a conveniently ground level spot, like something that was actually built on the planet. And great. Now part of me wants to complain about the fact that the engines on this version of the ship just don't look all that good. Is it just me, or did the previous 2 Metroid Primes give Samus's ship more than 2 small jets to take off and land? It's actually a bit weird that I can feel annoyed at the ship in this game, but not the previous 2 Metroid Primes when our ship barely did anything in those previous 2 games. Maybe because they wanted to give the ship a more aggressive appearance for this one since it's more active, and forgot that it had more jets for landing and taking off in previous entries. At the very least, it's hard not to notice that kind of detail when the sheer number of times we're going to see the ship move around in this game is pretty high. Wait, I thought the PED suit meant we could absorb Phazon. Now we're being told that Phazon that's on the rock that introduced Phazon to this planet isn't mature enough to be dangerous? If the game was gonna bother keeping Phazon hazardous, they should have made the entire seed a toxic hellhole. And of course, doors on the seed work the exact same way as doors absolutely anywhere else. Wait, so we need to spend some health in order to gain some supplies when the ship we came in on already heals us up and refills our ammo to the maximum? Oh, so we don't actually need to use hyper mode to break those things. Not that it makes it make much more sense, but it isn't quite as dumb as I was expecting at first. Ah, well, I suppose that's the closest we're gonna get to the eyes on the doors we saw in the 2D games, at least functionally wise. So, the big guardian boss for the seed that landed on Brio was an ancient war golem of Brio that's been here longer than the rocket's now supposed to be guarding. And it's designed in such a way that this is the perfect environment for it for some reason. I know I wouldn't have had an issue with something like this in the 2D games, partly because the 2D games don't have any lore entries around trying so hard to make the world feel more lived in, and give the environment some extra spice than just looking pretty or dull in a given area. And partly because I don't feel this boss is a threat. He's just a time waster. So maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Anyway, we've got 3 orbs we have to destroy on his front and 1 in his back. The back one is probably gonna be the most annoying for us. So let's just deal with the first 3. Okay, so apparently the orbs shift position in the front. Just another thing to slow us down. One down, but for some reason it didn't weaken the enemy's health bar. Okay, just how are we supposed to actually injure this guy? Sure, we're having a visual effect on him, but come on. Down, 1 left on the front, and apparently the enemy isn't going to do anything to shift position of the one on the back. 3 red orbs destroyed, and the enemy's health bar still hasn't lowered a single bit. Need to hyper beam the glowing spots where we destroyed orbs in order to hurt him. It's probably appropriate in some way that the first bit of permanent damage I did was to the big stone bastard's crotch. By explosion, I'm assuming we need to use bombs instead of missiles. Well, that takes care of his leg armor. Time to destroy the other two orbs at the front. We'll worry about the back later. Son of a bitch, that was a waste of ammo slash health. Damn, seems he managed to fix one of the red orbs we destroyed. Again, I'm really not feeling all that threatened by this thing, especially since most of our damage in this fight has been self-inflicted in order to hurt him in a more meaningful way. I'd probably have more fun with it if it wasn't for the whole health is ammo thing. Or the fact that it's more padding after we already dealt with some padding. And that's another one down. And we're back to breaking foot armor. Mostly wondering if we'll get killed simply by using too much of our health and the big guy getting lucky with some extra hits, than because the large monster we're fighting is legitimately scary and dangerous to deal with. Or in this case, just me having iffy timing for when we blow the leg armor, and an inability to jump while in morph ball form. In terms of spectacle, we've seen better from the Metroid Prime games. Hell, the single largest boss in the 3D games was the Ink Guardian they had for the third major temple in Metroid Prime 2. The first fight against Ridley in this game was quite amazing to look at. And this fight does not have the same emotional cocktail as the fight against Rundus, which means we absolutely needed something a little extra to give this more spice and to be more memorable. Now, I'm not saying that absolutely every Metroid boss fight needs to feel like something special. We've gone through a number of boss fights in this franchise that feel like they just fade into the background. But with the sheer amount of stalling we've seen in this clip alone, I kind of wanted more of a sense that this boss was gonna have something going for it, other than just being thrown in for the sake of giving us something to deal with when we're done with the first seed. I possibly wouldn't have had so much of an issue with this boss if it wasn't for the fact that the two guns we had to disable were blatant stalling tactics, and that was on top of the two shield generators that were blatant stalling tactics for us to reach this place. What can I say? Padding on top of padding is a bit of a pet peeve when it comes to storytelling, video games or otherwise. Right, 3 down, just one on the plaque left and we're done with this guy. Well, at least I'm faster to deal with the leg armor this time. Now to just hope we can hit the guy in the back often enough to break the red orb and then pump it with hyper beam shots. Ah, thank you for giving us your back, sir. And here I thought this would be the most time-consuming part of the fight. Nope, he dumbs himself down for the last quarter of health to make the final stretch more convenient for us. Bit of an odd decision, but hey, I'm not gonna argue with him. I'm just gonna smile, because once we're done with this seed, this long clip will end. that does it. The column that was here with no explanation is done for, and we finished destroying the first seed. And look at that. The corruption in our veins has increased in the cutscene. Excuse me for not feeling any added tension as we become that little bit more phase-on infused due to matters beyond our control. Samus, what are you doing? Oh, well, I suppose it makes sense you wouldn't want to puke with your helmet still on. Good thing she was in an environment where she could afford to take it off, otherwise that would be very awkward. Just how would she manage to try cleaning the inside of her helmet anyway? Especially when it can temporarily phase itself out of existence. Great. Now part of me can't help wondering why we had to walk forward a bit to gain this upgrade, when this could have just come with the short bit of puking we just did. It's not a major thing, I'm just in a mindset right now where I kind of want to trim some of the unnecessary stuff and move things along a bit faster. And now some things that can only be destroyed by the specific upgrade we gained are spawning in just we have a quick tutorial on it. We can be a literal rolling ball of death right now, but I think I'll stick to the more conventional means of fighting until absolutely forced to use the hyper mode related stuff, as usual. I'm sure we'll run into some doors through the game where we'll need to use that specific move at some point. As a side note, we never had to kill anything like this on Talon 4 or Aether, even though those planets also had phase-on-infused meteors land on them. As I complained about before, they changed the rules of phase-on in a lore-heavy sub-series to try to make things feel more epic in the finale of the trilogy. It's still fun, but I really wish that 1 and 2 were used as proper setups to 3, so it didn't feel like so much that is critical to Metroid Prime 3 just came out of nowhere. Should I laugh that she slowly walked away from the thing before it blew up? Or annoyed that the camera wasn't set up in an angle where we could see her still walking as that thing finally went off in an explosion?